Hello and welcome back to the IDC TechTalk podcast. I'm your host Miles Dawson, and today I'm very excited to be doing something a little bit new with the podcast because we have two guests with us here today. We have Lawrence Freeborn.
Hello.
And we have Thomas Sink.
Hi, good morning everyone.
Now gentlemen, you both work for the Financial Insights team here at IDC. It would be helpful if you gave our listeners a quick overview of what your roles are and more about the coverage that your team has in EMEA.
Yeah, so I'm Lawrence Freeborn. I'm the research manager for IDC Financial Insights. I work out of the office in London and cover European banking digital transformation strategies.
Hi, my name is Thomas Sink. I am stationed in Munich and I'm leading our European financial services research. We are a small but fine crew of analysts. While Lawrence is focusing mostly on retail banking, I'm building our corporate banking research, and then we have third analyst, Sabita, who's not with us today, who's focusing on insurance.
That's great. Thank you very much. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about mobile banking and how banks are driving forward with mobile platforms, even though the numbers don't necessarily show that consumers are following along with that. Is that true? What can you give us a quick background on what the numbers say about that?
Yes. So we ran our annual consumer channel preference survey earlier this year, and that interviewed more than 2,000 people across the three major European markets of France, Germany and the UK, looking at their banking habits, their likes and dislikes, and how they might respond to some of the new regulations and experiences which are starting to appear. So just in terms of a channel usage snapshot, what we're seeing is online banking is fairly well established. It's the most penetrative channel. People are most likely to use the online banking channel on an almost daily or a weekly basis. In terms of weekly or monthly, so less frequent interactions, lots of people still use the branch. And when you get down to the least frequent, maybe less than once a month, people use the branch more than any other channel. So I haven't mentioned mobile. There's only really between 15 and 20% of people who use it frequently, either almost daily or weekly. And there's still a big chunk of people, well over a third of people in UK, France and Germany who told us in the survey that they simply never use mobile banking. So that's really the background for this podcast today.
Right, so the consumers are resisting that wave of new channels, and they're still keen to maintain that physical contact with their bank branches. Then how are financial institutions going to effectively digitise their business?
Well, when you look at the statistics, the branch is still the key sales channel for most of the banks out there. And even if customers go through a more complex journey when they inform themselves on what's available in the market, or to get offers, or even to transact and manage their accounts through digital channels, some parts of the digital product lifecycle still remain reserved for physical contact, and that's particularly around account opening and account closing. So banks really need to focus on developing end-to-end a digital channel lifecycle. So new technologies around video identification, digital identities, biometrics, and generally a better way of handling the KYC part of it are already readily available. But the rollout is still largely limited, and in certain markets that's obviously limited by regulations. Sometimes it's the organizational structure that's a barrier here. Eventually, I believe data will be the key, and the convergence of several of the innovation accelerators and third platform technologies that we at IDC are talking a lot about will be the ultimate vehicle to achieve value in the business cycle. When you take each of those technologies by themselves, they are obviously bringing some impact on the business, but the real value really comes out when you combine them. So take, for instance, combining IoT, the Internet of Things, with cognitive and robotics, and that's when you really get a real impact. And so far, we really have seen that the financial services industry, although they were a very early startup, for instance, in big data, is still relatively immature compared with other industries such as retail or particularly the e-commerce space when it comes to, for instance, contextual marketing and how you engage customers.
So yeah, picking up on what Tom said about the branch remaining a key sales channel. We did a big piece of research on this in 2015, and this is absolutely right. When we talk about digitization, there's lots of things banks can do to digitize their branches. I mean, this includes introducing digital signs that can be controlled remotely or centrally to replace old-fashioned posters, introducing touch interfaces in the branch to replace older automated tellers, and the like. These kinds of things, they can be cost-saving measures which help put branches on a sustainable footing. And we've also seen people like Virgin Money, AIB, and lots of others come up with totally new branch concepts which are fully digitally enabled. These types of concepts can get customers used to the idea of the branch as being part of the digital offering of the bank, and maybe accelerate the move towards fully digital channels as well. Just a couple of other small points. So maybe enterprise mobility is something that should come into this discussion. Equipping staff with tablets which they can use to teach customers about mobile and digital experiences, and also uses sales platforms is another factor here. The famous example is Barclays, who've got their Digital Eagles concept running for a few years as well.
What's Barclays Digital Eagles?
So Barclays, so like I say, this has been running for a few years, and it's a very celebrated example of banks equipping their sales agents, their customer support staff within the branches with digital technology, mostly in the form of tablets, to use them as a sales platform for customers, as I've said. Barclays has been quite keen on engaging with people that come into the branch and making them more digitally savvy, more likely to go away and start using the mobile channels, the online channels, when they go away from the branch. So I think this, in some ways, this is cannibalizing the branch business, but on the other hand, encouraging people to use the mobile channel is obviously a worthwhile goal from Barclays' point of view.
We were last week at an event, and Barclays UK CEO was giving his view on the Eagles Lab, and he was saying, so for instance, they provide 3D printers there, so people can go and print out their ideas without sending them somehow expensively to China to have it to test it.
So it's almost that they're pushing that rather than trying to push them away from the branch, they're actually trying to encourage people to come into the branch more by using digital technology.
That is definitely an objective. I mean, it's really about generating that bigger outreach and really get into conversations with people that usually might not be your original customers.
Interesting. So what will it take then to encourage customers and the financial institutions themselves to embrace digital channels more wholeheartedly?
Well, I believe contextualization and relevance are really the key here. But this is obviously a lot more difficult than it sounds. From privacy over to data management and analytics, the challenges here are really manifold. Yet, this really holds the key to drive digital customer engagement. Our survey showed that there is a large degree of openness towards, from consumers towards, for instance, trading personal data against better pricing or a better service. However, what is the real pull factor for each customer will really depend on the market, on the personal preferences, as well as on the product. So there's not really a golden bullet here that we can recommend. It's really about trial and error and figuring that really for particular customer segments, if not the segment of one. Another key enabler really is agility. And it's really about how quickly can you develop, can you test, can you implement and evaluate and refine new campaigns and products. And then the last one, and probably the most challenging over the last couple of years, was the intuitiveness of digital applications. And this is really where banks have, or some banks have done a pretty poor job, and we haven't really seen the killer app from any bank in terms of intuitiveness of use. But I believe now with open banking, and that's brought about by PSD2, and that will definitely push the agenda for banks to come up with a better digital offering, really answering to the needs of the customer.
Yeah, so if I can come back to just a specific point of how banks can encourage customers to adopt digital channels. I mean, if you look at the online channel, you can say that this battle has largely been won already in countries such as the UK, and as I mentioned earlier, you can see that in the results of the consumer preference survey. So been asking how did this happen. The obvious point is clearly that it's a more convenient channel than what went before. All of the while, banks have been hammering home this message that online is a secure channel. I mean, they've advertised this relentlessly. They all promise to cover any losses from online fraud for their customers, provided the customers could point out that they'd behaved in a reasonable way. But a similar push hasn't really happened for the mobile channel so far. And considering that security concerns are usually the biggest factor stopping people using mobile, I just think that banks should really be shouting from the rooftops that mobile is probably more secure than any other channel, so long as it's done right. What we don't know currently is how consumers will take to new digital channels which are just starting to develop. So things like messaging interfaces and virtual assistants are examples of this. Probably also the PSD2 style account aggregators, which we're all expecting as well. These are really only just beginning to emerge. And yeah, just to repeat, it's a bit early to say what adoption will be like. And frankly, I think that in the end, it's likely to come down to natural attrition to push up adoption rates. I mean, speaking as a millennial, I feel at home on the mobile channel, but I'm less interested in using virtual assistants, probably compared to younger generations. And to me, the idea of talking to Google Home or something like that into an otherwise empty room just seems a little bit weird.
It's interesting though, because I've got Alexa, Amazon Alexa at home, and the concept of using that to do banking is a bit alien to me. Even though I'm a millennial, I'm very much into my mobile channel. When it comes to my banking, I do almost all my banking through my mobile. The concept of using an AI or a cognitive to do that is quite alien to me. But that actually brings me on to my next question, which is, with all these different channels going on, I mean, what's the best option here? I mean, is the option to go omni-channel and push like a mixture of everything, or should these financial institutions really be focusing on mobile first? I mean, what's the best option there?
Well, I believe that while mobile clearly has a lot of potential, there will be a lot of markets, particularly in Europe and North America, that will be quite slow to go mobile if they ever go mobile. I think they will go at some point though. So people don't trust it, usability and intuitive remain an issue, and some accelerators, such for instance as mobile payments, are not really working the way in Europe or Northern America, because people are already used to other payment types, for instance just like tapping a contactless card. So unless mobile payments can really offer a value add, why would I change my behavior? And I think that's really a key barrier in the adoption of mobile banking in Europe. Other markets, however, particularly when we talk about emerging markets here, the story is completely different. Take China as an example. I mean, that's really brilliant what Alipay and Tenpay are doing over there. They have really reached mass adoption in mobile payments in the biggest cities, and you can pay for pretty much everything with your mobile app. And the banks in China were obviously completely late to this game, and as a matter of fact have been more or less disintermediated from payments. Now all of those players require banking licenses now, so I think now we're really up for the end game fight over retail banking in China. So it's really interesting what's happening there, and that's also applying in many other emerging markets. And I think for Europe, banks should really, by all means, invest in building a first-class mobile platform, but consumers will be a lot more selective in the channels that they want to use. They will go with what they know, which is call a call center if they have a problem, or even come to a branch to really get that personal touch in the relationship. And it's really more about offering everything at the same time, and let the customer decide according to his particular preferences and also to his momentary needs. So it depends really on where he is, what he wants to do, how much time he has. So the better digital channels are connected and integrated in the overall customer experience, the more consumers will shift eventually towards digital. So for me, it's really, I think European banks should consider focusing on the Omni experience. I think, at least for the moment, while mobile adoption and also those other new channels that are coming up is still limited, it's really a smart move to focus on building this consistent cross-channel experience rather than focusing all my efforts into building a world-class mobile proposition that people might not be using really.
Yeah, so my position on this is that you're only really going to be talking about omni-channel if you already have a branch network. There are a couple of new-ish banks who are making a virtue of using new style branches like Metro Bank or Handelsbank, but if you're designing a bank from scratch, you're very unlikely to decide that having a branch network is the way to go. It reminds me of the old joke about asking directions. So if an HSBC or a Deutsche Bank or whoever it is comes to you and says, how do I become the perfect bank? The easy answer is, I wouldn't start from here. So on this basis, I just think it's simplistic or maybe even dangerous to preach an omni-channel message, because we're at a time when industries are being massively digitally disrupted. If you look at high street retailers, they're in the throes of a long-term and probably irretrievable recession, really. And if you look at banks, while this podcast is being recorded, they're closing branches all the time. You can add to that the big regulations that are coming down the pipe as well. PSD2 is clearly setting us up for a time when mobile is the big battleground for customer experience in the coming years. And also, if you look at GDPR, this is all about acknowledging the centrality of data and e-commerce in the years to come. So all of this really screams to me mobile first. So maybe not mobile only, but definitely mobile first.
Interesting. So it's up to you, listener, who you choose to side with, either Thomas or with Lawrence. Okay, well, we're in an interesting ending to this podcast now because we have two possible options. Is it omni-channel or is it mobile first? We'd love to hear your opinions. So please do get in touch. You can comment on the post on the IDC website. You can get in touch through social media as well. You can tweet us at IDC_EMEA, or you can give your opinions to Thomas and Lawrence as well. Are you guys on Twitter?
Yes, I'm on at IDC Lawrence.
And my Twitter handle is ThomasSync5, all in one word.
Brilliant. So we'd love to hear your opinions. Please get in touch and let us know where you think the market is moving. And please join us again next time, where we'll be discussing another topic affecting the IT industry. You can also find us on Facebook, LinkedIn and YouTube. Just search for us there under IDC. Thank you all very much and see you next time.
Thank you, Mark.
Bye.